What's going on, guys? Pegasus and the Wise guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you sub. Make sure you hit the bell, guys. Lyrilusc is a pretty popular deck. It just got some support at Synchro Storm. So we're going to talk a little bit, maybe do a few combos, and then we'll go from there. Let's get it. So in this first combo with Wagtail and with Warbler, Warbler's been out for a little while. Wagtail's a little bit newer. You guys have obviously, if you have Synchro Storm in your hands, you kind of already got that. But guys, this deck, to really explain it in a fast and rapid fashion, it's spamming a bunch of birds onto the board. Very, not to be confused with Flunderies, but very, very similar to Flunderies, except this is special summon based. With that being said, you most of the time want to go directly into Recital Starling and then be able to both add attack points to a card, as well as actually search out Wing Beast from your deck. From there, obviously you want to be able to search each and every time, and you also want to note certain cards like Cobalt Sparrow, which allows you to be untargeted when you do have it under as material, which allows the deck to then play through specific stuff like Veiler and Imperm. From there, you pretty much just spam more, search more, and then spam out more of the birds, and then pretty much most of the time you can end on the Utopic Draco Future simply because you have two leftover Exceeds. They didn't go into F-Zero and then go into Utopic Draco Future. And then obviously with some of the rest of the combo, you pretty much with the Tri-Brigade stuff get to end on Samoric stuff, Ancient Warrior stuff, and much, much more. Obviously the token signifies Link Karibo, but there also is other options. That's why I kind of left that blank to let you kind of fill that in for yourself. And then obviously the new card that just came out, the Exceed Ensemble is its name, and obviously that's a little bit of a play on words, and it's also a play on colors because blue ensemble, yeah, you pretty much got that. But this is a pretty strong board, guys. I'm not gonna say it's the best thing that I've ever seen, but it's definitely absolutely insane. And if you started off with just those two cards and you can end on something like this, and then these three crossouts are actual cards that put on a threat, I'm gonna say that's pretty decent. As far as touching on another Tri-Brigade combo, this time it's revolving around Wagtail, as well as Tri-Brigade Fractal. I think Fractal is best served by pitching to get Kit, to get Nerval, to then get Kuros, which is pretty much the standard that everybody pretty much knows, so I didn't feel like I wanted to take too much time in explaining that. But from there, banishing 2 off the Kuros, you get to special summon out the Farrajet, and then from there the Farrajet gets to summon out the Wagtail, and Wagtail gets to search out the bird call that we had already talked about in the first combo. From there you get to link off those two to then go into Bear Broom. And Bear Broom, obviously, if you've never seen it before, it is a big cost of pitching to and then hoping you don't get Veiler and Imperm, but sometimes you can just play through it anyway. And most of the time that's going to be your choke point. At least within this combo, that's going to be a choke point, because most of the time they can't interact with you with Veiler and Imperm, as I said before, because most of the time the Exceeds have stuff and have the birds that are under them that disallow your opponent from targeting them, as you can see with Cobalt Sparrow. Again, guys, it pretty much turns into the same kind of combo. And within that combo, it's not going to be quite the same, because you're probably going to end this hand with no cards in hand. Usually if you've tried to commit, and that's obviously off of the Bear Broom, you're not going to end on the same amount of cards because you activated Bear Broom, which took some cards out of your hand and pretty much leaves 1 card in your hand. So the only difference between the first combo and the second combo is that you actually want to end on Revolt, and putting Revolt on the field in the Tri-Brigade version is really, really strong, especially behind a board like that. And the Utopic Draco Future with that behind it is even more powerful, but I don't know if that's win more or not. I definitely think there's multiple options for you to use as far as whether you want to use pure Lyrilusc or use the Tri-Brigade version, because they both have won tournaments relatively recently. As far as this combo with Warbler and with Fractal, again, it's the same kind of combo, but this time you're only dumping the Cobalt Sparrow, and then from there, Warbler is going to actually be able to summon back the very first Cobalt Sparrow that got dumped into the graveyard. From there, you overlay in the Recital Starling, much the same way you're searching out a Sapphire Swallow, and usually it's just grabbing whatever bird you haven't seen yet. That's the fast way to explain that. But if you do have a card like Nerval that you first added to your hand, then you have to obviously realize you get to summon out Nerval, and then anytime that it actually hits the graveyard, you get to trigger and then plus off of it the same way that you've always done with Tri-Brigade. But this time it's used as XYZ material, which doesn't quite happen quite as much, and you may not have seen that before. As far as going from there. It's pretty much the same thing, except this time you get to actually use your normal summon of the Fractale to do pretty much the same thing that you're accustomed to. And then on the same kind of strong strategic board that can pretty much devastate your opponent in much the same way. This new card as well, Canary, is very strong as well and allows you to end on the Exceed Ensemble, and an Avian obviously doesn't hurt anything either. As far as lists are concerned, obviously you either play the Pure, you play the Tri-Brigade, and this is just an example. It's not a perfect list, it's just what I mess around with when I'm helping someone online. I'm not a big fan of this deck. However, I do have a lot of good buddies that play this deck, and really most of the time this is pretty close to their list if they're playing the Tri-Brigade version. I would give or take a card here or there, give or take cross out. You know, I don't feel like it's absolutely necessary, but I definitely think having talents and cross out in the same deck is actually a little bit insane, and I don't think it specifically loses to anything. So unless you really feel like it's unnecessary, I highly recommend putting Lancey in the side somewhere, just because you die a horrible death to that deck. Not necessarily the same as pure Tri-Brigade, but it definitely hurts a lot. And then pretty much everything else is self-explanatory as far as the extra deck is concerned, because everything pretty much is tight. Nothing can really change. There may be a card here or there that you may want to play, but I feel you have to play double Recite Starling. And then obviously you got Ensemble at 1 and Zeus at 1, and there's a lot of stuff and there's not much space. As far as the pure version, I do feel like there's a little bit more space, just because there's no way to link climb really without playing the Tri-Brigade stuff, so you pretty much just exceed the entire time. With cards like Canary and with cards like Wind Chandler on the side, you definitely want to put Wind Chandler inside of this deck. Again, this is just a skeleton to mess around with, but I would recommend playing a card like Chandler just because there's so many wins, and you can just get into anything that you pretty much need at any time. As far as cards like Featherstorm, cards like Samorg being in this deck, not so much. Maybe Featherstorm if you could side it, but those are just all options down there. And then obviously with cards like Jack in the Hand, it's pretty much the same thing. And then with Ensemble, again, just to highlight this in case you have never seen these, each one of these effects down at the very bottom of each one of these cards gives it a little bit something extra. One is an anti-change of heart, anti-control switching, very similar to Blindly Loyal Goblin. Shout out to that very old card. As well as some of the rest of them, they just attach themselves from the graveyard. The brown one actually gets to attach itself and then also make the card untargetable, which helps you resolve effects and be immune almost complete, well, not almost completely, to cards like Veiler and Imperm if they're under the cards that you're actually using to search. And with that being said, guys, I hope this has helped you a little bit. I highly, I'm going to say one more time, highly recommend you go check out Sir EMANON's channel. Shout out to him. He doesn't need viewers for me. I'm just literally saying to you guys, he covered in 2 hours everything that you will ever need to know about this deck. So just in case this didn't satisfy your appetite, I promise you that one will. And I'll see you next time. I'm out. YG, baby. Pegasus out. Sayonara.